Hey, welcome to the Go To Physio Podcast, episode 74 or season 4, episode 24 of building a go-to clinic that gives you true freedom. Now, if you want true freedom as a clinic owner, you're going to need great staff. And that's what I want to talk about in today's episode is the Go-To Clinic 3-step hiring process that we both teach in our Go-To Clinic Mastermind program, but also implement here in Pro Sport Physio. And I think that's really important to understand is everything that I teach, everything I talk about, it's grounded in the trenches. What I'm teaching here isn't something that sounds good in theory. In fact, there's nothing that pisses me off more than people on the internet talking about what sounds good in theory, but actually in reality is completely different. So that's what we want to talk about today is the 3-step process that I've used now after a lot of trial and error to be able to save time, to cut through all the crap and actually find good people. Because as I said, good people, it's non-negotiable if you want freedom as a clinic owner. So what is the 3-step process? Well, our 3-step process usually involves initially, step 1 is a phone call. Step 2 is a Zoom interview of some kind. And then step 3 is the in-person practical. Okay, and I'll take you through what each of those looks like in a second. But what I've realized is that it's very, very hard to literally have somebody come in half an hour and make a judgment call. And that's why we've had to develop the 3-step hiring process is to allow you to act on any of your gut feelings, but also to look for consistency in answers also. Okay. And this is where I find this incredibly useful. It saves us a lot of time and it's been very, very successful for us and other clinicians. So step 1 is the phone interview. Okay, now the phone interview is usually a 10-15 minute interview max, okay? And essentially it's a screening interview, okay? We'll assess the person's phone manner, their communication skills. Ideally, you'll ring the person that won't be expecting the call, okay? So don't be afraid to, not cold call obviously because they've applied for the job, but actually just ring them without telling you're ringing them. And just ask for that 10 minutes when they're off guard. I think that's really, really useful. But also you can just schedule a 10-15 minute phone call. Okay. The beauty of that is you can gauge how interested the person is. You can avoid wasting time on suitable candidates in later stages. And as I said, a lot of this is the tonality on the phone, the communication. It's really an opportunity to understand the person, how much they know about your business in the first place, how generally interested they are, but then also if there's anything that's not quite right or you're just not quite sure about, you have an opportunity then the next 2 rounds to either ask those questions again or to ask them a different way so that you can get that consistency in answers, okay? Or you can put your mind at ease at that stage. So in terms of the phone interview, probably one of the big screening parts that we have in our cheat sheet for Mastermind members is the salary expectation, the notice period, their availability for work, their right to work, all those big things. The last thing you want to get down to is an interview process where you've taken somebody through the whole thing and there's a massive misalignment in either their salary expectations, their notice periods, among many other things. So getting to the root of all of these non-negotiables, as we call them, asking those up front, it just stops all of the time wasting later on. One of the big questions we'll ask in the first phone interview as well, and one of the very first questions I'll ask is, what do you know about my company? And again, that's how we're going to just cut through all the bull and actually see if they actually know about our company or if they're just clicking on every application. And again, with clinicians, usually we're pretty good. More admin type roles, usually you'll get that where they click on every ad on Indeed. Okay, and they're almost like, just remind me who are you again? And at that point, then I'm just like, right, this person obviously isn't that serious about the role. Okay. If we're good with that, then we decide to put them onto a Zoom. So why don't I bring them straight in at that point? I like Zoom because they're in their environment again. Again, you're getting a lot of gauge from that where they're in their environment. What are they like with technology? All that stuff is being taken care of. And at this stage then, also even what they wear to the interview. Okay, again, are they actually dressing up to impress in the interview, or are they just in their casual clothes? And again, that's not a deal breaker for us, but it's just interesting to see how serious the person is about the role. Now, usually for the step 2 interview, I'll usually ask around core value type questions around that point, because I want to assess the core value alignment with the business's alignment, okay? And we're evaluating key traits then as well while they're in the comfort of their own home, okay? So we might start the interview. That's usually going to go on for about 30 minutes. We'll start the interview, usually looking at their background, their experience, their CV. Then we'll get into more core value-based questions and the initial trait-based questions as well. Then we'll allow the candidate to ask any questions about the role in the clinic, etc. And then we'll re-ask the key screening interview questions again. So again, I'll ask them again, salary expectations, notice period, availability for work. Okay, because again, I'm looking for consistency in that as well. And anything then that I'm not quite sure about, we want to ask those questions again then. Then we get into the in-person interviews. And again, this is a bit longer then. So we've gone kind of 10, 15 minutes phone, half an hour, usually 20 to half an hour Zoom. Obviously, the beauty of Zoom is you can interview quite a few people. If you had 20 minutes, you could do 3 in an hour kind of thing there. It's nice and fast as well. It's not, you're having to get people wait outside and other people come in and stuff like that. I find it's actually very, very nice for you as well to get through a few more people. Step 3 then is the in-person interview and the role play. Okay, so then components of that, a bit longer. There might be a tour of the clinic, introduction to key team members. Then we're going into in-depth trait-based questions. There, I'm not going to cover these today because I know for a fact there's going to be a lot of people who are applying for jobs in my clinic with this. Okay, so again, there's a lot of psychology in the questions that we ask. We go through all that in the Go To Clinic Mastermind. Okay, and as I said, I'm not going to publicly share those questions today for that reason. Then we're doing a role play scenario as well, and we're looking at the basics. Okay, and again, if you are wanting to interview for my clinic, then you need to be able to have good people skills. You need to do a decent initial assessment. Okay, and again, we'll do the role play scenarios. I'm not going to go through the exact things again for that reason. Okay, but what I would say for you as the clinic owner is what are the most important things that you want that person to be able to do, and we want to create that role scenarios in order to stress test those things essentially. Okay, so we're looking for the demonstration of the key traits in the real world. Want great people skills, basic skills and knowledge that are trainable, ability to think on their feet, handle unexpected situations, and most importantly, good culture fit and rapport with existing team members. Okay, and again, at that stage then we can make a final decision, or we can extend the offer, or we can end the process. Okay, so again, we can bring them back in for another interview if we're not quite sure, okay, or if we have 2 candidates, we want to narrow it down at that stage, then, as I said, there's no rule that you have to hire someone after the first in-person interview, okay? Hire slow, fire fast is usually the rule, okay? And I think it's a very, very important rule because a good staff member will change your life, a bad staff member will change your life as well, but for all of the wrong reasons, okay? So I think the key thing here to reiterate as well, and again, if there is anyone listening to this that are looking to apply for roles within my company, I'm very much looking for people skills, okay? The skills and the knowledge I can train, but what I need is somebody who's trainable, okay? And I think that's the key thing here is, especially with the role plays, I'm not looking for someone to be perfect, but I want them to have the core foundations there, and I need them to be trainable so that we can then actually go and do our thing. Because obviously we're very fortunate. We've got to Go To therapist mentorship. We've got a very strong onboarding system. We've got our numbers in place. So essentially this is our bread and butter. We've done it for thousands of clinicians all over the world at this stage and for other clinic owners as well. So as I said, I think it's all about first and foremost core values, good people skills, and is that person trainable? Have they got common sense? So that's essentially the 3-step hiring process. Some best practices, consistent scoring system across all interviews, involve multiple team members if possible. As well, take detailed notes during each step because you'll be amazed at what you forget after speaking to a lot of people on one particular day. Provide a consistent experience for all candidates, I think, is pretty important. And to be fair to them, follow up promptly with candidates after each step. Trust your gut instinct. but back it up with objective observations, I think is pretty important as well for me. Repeat any questions that are evoking an emotional reaction in different ways. So again, if there's anything that's not quite sitting right that they said, at least you have another opportunity then in future interviews to actually clarify those things as well. And then check references. I think that goes without saying as well. Okay, I'm amazed at some even some of my staff that have moved on and have never once heard from an employer about that person. Okay, and again, I would personally be very honest about the role and stuff like that. So again, if I had a clinician who I think is very strong, but they're not strong enough to go into a certain role, then I'm not going to risk my reputation by telling those people lies. Okay, I'll be very, very honest with the questions that I'm asked. Okay, but as I said, I think it's absolutely ridiculous that people don't check references. Okay, so that's it for me for this episode. Nice and short, just to give you an overview of it. We will go into that in a little bit more detail in future episodes, but I just wanted to introduce this process of what we do, because I know it's come up quite a bit in our mastermind program, especially with the solo clinic owner in our Go To Clinic mentorship at the moment. A lot of those clinicians, they are about to make their first hires, and something that I do a lot with those solo clinic owners is support them to find the right people, because I know firsthand if we can get the right people, their job then is a multi-therapist clinic owner, and as they grow, it's just going to be so much easier if we get the right people in, which is why we spend a lot of time in that. And then in the Go To Clinic Mastermind, when someone comes in initially, a lot of it's dealing with staff. And then for low-will staff, then it's about moving them on and getting the right people in. But if you get really good staff, it can change your life. As I said, you don't have good staff, it can really slow you down. It can evoke the culture, it can harm potentially good A players in the business, and a whole host of other stuff as well. Okay, so that's it for this episode. Hire slow, fire fast, and the biggest thing is trust your gut. Okay, and that's the beauty of the 3-step hiring system, is if there's something not quite right, you can ask that question in different ways in the other sessions as well. If you want any support with this, if you want to the templates, the processes, the role plays, all of that's in the Go To Clinic Mastermind. So if that's something you're interested in, just put an application in, tell me your vision of where you want to get to, and then if the program's a right fit, we can help you with it. Then I'll give you all the details of the program. Okay, so that's it for this week. I'll see you next time. Thanks for tuning in to this week's show. I hope you enjoyed it. Now, if you'd like a free copy of my Head Physio Systems 6-step checklist that I use to personally audit my own therapists to make sure that they can keep patients progressing even when the pain is eased, so that we can ethically increase our patient numbers, our revenues and referrals, head over to www.thegotophysio.com/checklist and I'll get that sent straight over to you. That's it for this week. I'll see you in next week's show.